If you suspect that the US government is lying to you about the true nature and purpose of its activities in the Middle East and throughout the world, you are not alone. Geopolitical expert and investigative journalist Jake Morphonios will guide you through the labyrinth of mainstream media lies and government gaslighting. Sit back and get ready to learn. This is the Blackstone Intelligence Network.
Now, this 1948-49 conflict, that's known as the First Arab-Israeli War. The Second Arab-Israeli War is also known as the Suez Crisis of 1956. The Arabs call it the tripartite aggression. The Jews call it the Sinai War. Basically, what was going on was that the European colonial powers took control of the Suez Canal because that's what they were using for shipments of Middle Eastern oil that the Europeans were exploiting for their own profit at the expense of the local people who were languishing in poverty and lack of education while the oil is flowing out of their land and the profits are not coming to them. They're going to these foreign Rothschild, Rockefeller oil corporations. It was exploiting it for their own profit. Well, what Egypt did was they acted to nationalize the Suez Canal Company that was owned primarily by British and French shareholders. It's kind of what Mohammed Mossadegh did in Iran when he booted out the Anglo-American oil company, the predecessor of what today is called BP, British Petroleum. They were exploiting the oil of Iran. Mohammed Mossadegh was elected. He kicked them out. He nationalized the oil and then used the profits from it to pour into social programs to raise people up. He poured it into education so that they could become literate. And so to get rid of Mossadegh, the CIA went in 1953, Operation Ajax, and they knocked him out. And they installed the Shah of Iran, who introduced this brutal, repressive regime, which eventually led to the 1979 revolution that put the Ayatollahs in power, and that government kind of continues to this day. And that's the real reason why America keeps trying to go to war with Iran. Iran took their oil back from us. Can you believe the audacity of the Iranians? The oil that we were taking, they took it back from us? We can't let that stand. We got to get back into Iran. So anyway, Egypt did basically that. They nationalized the Suez Canal Company. So what the colonial powers did was they backed a military operation by Israel. They didn't want to go in and do the dirty work themselves. Now, it's kind of like one mafia family scratching the back of another. They may not be friends all the time, but if there's things they can do of mutual benefit, they'll do it. Israel wanted land. They want this greater Israel. So yeah, they agreed to go in October, 1956, Israel invaded the Gaza Strip and went down into the Sinai Peninsula, which is that kind of triangle-shaped part between Greater Egypt and Palestine. So Israel goes in, invades the Gaza Strip, invades the Sinai. Britain and France eventually sent in their own troops to help the Israelis. Back then, U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower and the premier of the Soviet Union, they both were telling Britain and France, don't do this. Don't invade. Don't do this. And it was a big mess. By the time it was over, the Suez Canal system had been just so badly damaged, it was basically useless. It was a debacle for the colonial powers. Really backfired. So historians consider this 1956 war, the Second Arab-Israeli War, as the mark, historically speaking, this marks the end of Great Britain's role as one of the world's major powers. That's not me saying that. That is scholarly consensus among historians. When you have to find a marker at which we can say, all right, the once mighty British Empire, which used to be the, what the United States is today, their major power ended following the 1956 war. That's the marker, which should be a warning to the United States. We are following down that same path. By backing Israel, by going along with this, by stealing land, by trying to do the bidding of our war industry, our oil industry, we're just setting ourselves up for a huge collapse. It's going to happen. History repeats itself. It's going to happen. Now, the third Arab-Israeli war, let me speed through this. The third Arab-Israeli war you may have heard of more. This is called the 6-Day War. It took place in June 1967. You've got Palestinian resistance groups. They've been battling the Israeli military off and on for some time. It really starts to get worse in 1966. And this results in brutal Israeli reprisals against the civilian population. In leading up to June 67, Soviet intelligence reports demonstrated that Israel was massing and preparing for a major military operation against Syria. Egypt knows, dang it, they're going to come after us too, probably. So fearing this impending Israeli war to grab more lands, to add to its greater Israel project, you've got Israel's neighbors. They start moving their military assets around in preparation. What Israel does, again, being the masters of propaganda, these defensive movements by Egypt and Syria, Israel says, oh, look, they're preparing to go to war and attack us, so we should preempt that. And they launched their own pre-planned war. Israel sucker punched Egypt, knocked out Egypt's entire air force before they could even get a single plane off the ground. They attacked Syria's air force. Israel moved into the Gaza Strip and Egypt's Sinai Peninsula to occupy it. Israel grabbed Syria's Golan Heights. They went after the Jordanian-controlled East Jerusalem and West Bank. And when I was in Israel, Palestine, you can still see holes all over the place in buildings and gates and doors from the fighting. The marks are still there. Jordan held on to most of the land, but overall, the 6-Day War was an unmitigated, humiliating disaster for the Arab nations. And I don't know if anyone has mentioned it in the chat, but probably by now someone's said something about the USS Liberty. I've done a lot of reporting on the USS Liberty, so I won't really go into that now, other than to say Israel attacked a spy vessel that was part of the U.S. Navy that was off the coast of Egypt. Israel attacked it knowing full well, because we have the audio, some of the audio from the pilots talking back to ground control saying, it's waving a U.S. flag. They're flying a U.S. flag, and they're saying, Israel is saying, sink it, attack. And so Israel attacked the USS Liberty. Those sailors, to this day, those that are still alive, they hate Israel with a passion. And they are furious that our own government has taken the side of Israel. It was an act of war. Israel wanted to bring the United States of America into the war. They wanted the USA in there fighting against Egypt. And so what Israel did was it tried to sink the Liberty, take out its communications, sink the Liberty completely, so that the United States would think that it was Egypt that attacked the USS Liberty. Israel was supposed to be allies with the USA. It wouldn't make any sense for Israel to attack the Liberty. It was a false flag. It was a false flag attack. The United States ordered a nuclear strike on Cairo. They were 2 minutes away from the capital of Egypt when Johnson called this strike off. We almost attacked Cairo with a nuclear bomb. Just miles away were Soviet naval vessels. The Soviet Union would have responded to that with their own nukes. It would have been a nuclear war. And Israel was willing to put the entire world at risk to do that for its own benefit. Israel, these politicians that talk about Israel as our, best friend, our greatest ally, really? Since when does an ally slaughter sailors, try and sink it to pull you into a war on their behalf? That's right. Never forget. I've spoken with numerous men who had been aboard the Liberty. I can tell you from firsthand conversations, they know Israel attacked them. They know that Israel knows what they were doing. But anyway, like I said, I don't want to get too off on a tangent and get into that whole story. But anyway, the 6-day war was an absolute disaster for the Arab states. It resulted in hundreds of thousands more Palestinian refugees. It resulted in over 1 million Palestinians being placed under military occupation by Israel. Now, you've got the United Nations and just individual countries all around the world, the international community demanding that Israel return the lands that it had stolen during this war, because the world knew it was unjust. But of course, Israel doesn't care what the international community thinks. They just call everybody anti-Semites and they go on about their business. And the rest of the world, being the cucks that they are, they're like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I guess if Israel doesn't want to do what we say, we should just, go let them do whatever. Who cares? But anyway, the Arab states didn't let go of this. That was 1967. Like I said, 8 years later, those Arab countries went to war, October 1973, to try and take back the lands that Israel had stolen from them in that 1967 war. Egypt, after the fact, they didn't win militarily. Egypt, Syria, they did not win militarily. For Egypt's part, they did, after the war, through negotiations, they got control of the Sinai Peninsula back. Syria ended up losing even more territory in the Golan Heights than they had lost in 1967. So I'm going to skip over 1973 to 2023. And I'm just going to summarize by saying throughout these 50 years, Israel hasn't budged. No matter how many hoops that the Palestinians have jumped through, no matter what they have done, Israel has continued over and over again to use any efforts by what Israel does is they'll go and they'll poke and prod. They'll kill Palestinians. If the Palestinians don't respond, they'll kill some more. If the Palestinians turn the other cheek, they'll kill some more. And eventually, you'll have some people who fight back. And they can't possibly go up against the Israeli military. So what they do is they go after what they can, which are civilians. I've never said that I agree with it, but that's what happens. That's exactly what Israel wants, though, because whenever the Palestinians fight back, that gives Israel this propaganda that they can use to tell the world, see, we're under attack. Just like the Holocaust, they're out to kill us all. They just want to destroy us. So we have to go and massacre their women and children. And they go out and they carry out these apocalyptic bombing campaigns against civilian populations. Huge operation against southern Lebanon in 2006. Huge operation in 2008 against Gaza, killed 1,400 civilians. 2014, they killed over 2,000 civilians. Disproportionate numbers of children. So that's why I'm saying, here we are, October 2023. This fits perfectly into the pattern that Israel has engaged in since its founding. Most people don't know that just since 2022 to 2000, over this last year, prior to October 7th, the October 7th Hamas attack, Israel had killed hundreds of Palestinian civilians. It's the highest death toll in the last 2 decades outside of these major military operations. So it's reached a fever pitch. It's the Netanyahu regime, the most extreme, far right-wing, radical Zionist, fascist to the core administration that Israel has had since 1948. And they have been provoking like hell, because all along their plan has been to do what they're doing now, but they needed some justification, some pretext. So they've been killing Palestinians at a higher rate than they have in a long time. Israel has vastly increased its illegal settlement building, which, as much as the U.S. government is always backing Israel, even the U.S. government, it's our official foreign policy to say that these settlements are illegal and Israel should stop it. Haaretz and other Israeli news organizations have condemned this rapid expansion of settlement building, saying that it's going to provoke the Palestinians. You've had raids of Islamic holy sites by extremist Jews that go in and just go into Al-Aqsa Mosque and other places, desecrating it. These raids have increased exponentially. All of this dramatic provocation has resulted in what we saw on October 7th. You've got the Gaza-based faction Hamas. They retaliated. Al-Qassam brigades, their militant wing, retaliated in a very brutal way against Israeli citizens. If you've spent any time reading about how Hamas was able to, if you look through social media, if you look through, how did Hamas get away with this? You've got the Israeli Mossad, you've got Shin Bet, you've got the military up and down every inch of the border, not a real border, but the Israeli imposed border against Gaza. How is it that Hamas was able to get hundreds upon hundreds of fighters just pour right through? That there was virtually no defensive response from Israel. I mean, first of all, they screwed up and allowed it to happen somehow, but then stood down and didn't respond as hours and hours passed while the slaughter is happening. Jews and non-Jews alike believe that Benjamin Netanyahu knew that the attack was being planned, but he allowed it to happen so that he could carry out this new campaign of land grabbing and ethnic cleansing by using the Hamas attack as justification. But there is no justification for what Israel's doing. There is never justification for ethnic cleansing. There is never justification for genocide. There's never, ever, under any circumstances, justification for massacring children. Within its historical context, what Israel is doing now should not surprise anyone. This is what Israel has always done. It's just that the reason this time is so much worse is because they're going farther in their massacres in Gaza than they've done in the past. If you'd like a transcript of this episode, visit either blackstoneintel.substack.com or patreon.com/blackstoneintel. Supporters who donate $5 or more receive access to all of my Blackstone intelligence reports, along with other insider benefits. That's blackstoneintel.substack.com or patreon.com/blackstoneintel.
You can find Jake on YouTube under the channel name Blackstone Intel. To support his fight in the global information war, you can make a donation at PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or Patreon. Each account is under the name Blackstone Intel. You can also send a check or money order to Jake Morphonios, P.O. Box 1333, Kernersville, North Carolina, 27285. Your support would really mean a lot.